But also, there were never any little snot-nosed kids in here throwing Cheerios and writing with their crayons on the paneling and stuff like that. So this is like a senior-owned minivan, which you just don't really see a lot of minivans in quite as nice a shape. Welcome to Totally Rad Cars. My name is Mark Magana. I hope there's not too much noise from this traffic. It is actually kind of hard to find a place to shoot a car. Today we are looking at a 2014 Chrysler Town Country. And this car actually belonged to my mother. And it was a leftover 2024 that her and my dad purchased in March of 2015. They still had a couple 24s on the lot, so they got a good deal. It is the limited trim. And I forget the exact name of this color. I think it's ruby something or garnet something. I'll put a note on the screen, but it is a nice color. You see a lot of them in this color though, but it's a very nice color. At least I think so. This car has about 216,000 miles on it. I think it just turned 216 yesterday. It's a lot of miles. It is 10 years old, but that's still a lot of miles. And I think it's in remarkably nice condition. When my mom bought it, she had just always wanted a nice minivan, and that's something we just really didn't have the budget for when I was little. We had a Volkswagen bus. I think it was a 74, which is cool now, but wasn't at the time. And later it had a conversion van, Chevy G20, which was a good ride, but she always thought was just a little too big. And she just always wanted a minivan. And immediately prior to this car, I believe she had a Impala LS, and just prior to that, she had a 2005 Buick Rainier. And she was just at the point where she's like, this is what I want. It doesn't matter, my kids aren't small anymore. I just want one of these. It's easy to get into. It's not too low. It's not too high. It has a bunch of room. It's not too big, not too small. And I'm glad she made that choice, because while this is not something I would have ever picked out for myself, I have been daily driving this thing for quite a while now. And I'm really glad she passed about 2 years after we purchased it. And I'm very, very glad that this vehicle was available for us to use, because it's coming very, very handy. See the Town & Country trim across the back. Which I like how they put that in there. And there's the Chrysler logo, of course. This Town & Country comes with Chrysler's Pentastar V6. It's a 3.6 liter, dual overhead cam, 24 valves. It's rated at 283 horsepower and has 260 pounds of torque. It's made it to a 6-speed automatic transmission. I believe it's a 6.2 TE, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a big Chrysler guy, so if I got that wrong, I apologize. But it is a 6-speed automatic transmission, and it's an automatic that Chrysler has used for a long time before this. I think it debuted in around 1989, 1990, something like that. I have literally nothing bad to say about this car. I mean, I can nitpick a few things, but when this was purchased, I had some concerns because Chrysler as a whole, maybe not necessarily the Chrysler brand, but the Chrysler Corporation, there were reliability concerns with some models. The Sebring or the 200, whatever it was at the time, that nobody liked that. The 300 was around, but and I don't remember what else was around at the time, and this thing was getting a little long in the tooth in 2014. It was this model, this 5th generation Town and Country minivan debuted in 2008. And my aunt had a 2008, my great aunt to be specific. And I had a chance to drive that quite a bit when I would take her places while my mom had this. What a difference between 2008 and 2014. I will say, if you're in the market for a used Chrysler minivan for some reason, definitely go for the Pentastar. I think they started putting them in around 2011. Don't quote me on that, but just, do some quick homework. Definitely go for the Pentastar V6. It's a world of difference. I think there's about a 80, 90 horsepower difference. It's just a much nicer driving car than the earlier versions of this. And, even if it costs a few more bucks, you won't regret that. So, no accidents or anything, but a couple little things. In the last 2 years, maybe these headlights have gotten a bit foggy. I bought some of that Meguiar's wax that's supposed to bring them back and make them sparkle like new. It did do that, but it only lasted a couple months. So I think at some point, because I'm keeping this thing for the foreseeable future, and I think in the near future, probably before the winter here, I will get some new lenses to get rid of that fogginess. My parents retired in New Mexico, so this car was bought there and spent the first several years of its life there. And just New Mexico, the desert, you get some rock chips and nothing real serious along the front. There were a few up here. And then when I moved to Ohio, I initially lived near Lake Erie, and there's a lot of moisture here in Youngstown where I live now. And some of those rock chips, the paint started to bubble a little bit. It's nothing Chrysler did wrong. It's just a result of the rock chips in a dry desert climate and then moving to a much wetter climate. So this was something I had fixed earlier this year. Some inconsiderate person in the Lowe's parking lot banged the hell out of I got out a baseball size this ding with a bunch of white scrapes right there, and didn't leave a note or anything. I mean, I parked kind of far away, so I don't know if they hit me with a piece of pipe or what, but it was very frustrating. I filed a claim for that, and while it was there, I went ahead and did the hood anyway. And sure enough, shortly after I got it back, somebody else decided to scratch my mirror, and my antenna's a little bent. So people kind of suck. It doesn't matter if it's a minivan or a Ferrari or anything in between. It's not yours, so treat it with respect. That's I always try to treat people's vehicles with respect. I mean, accidents happen, but I think a lot of people just are self-absorbed, just don't care. People are jerks. So that's kind of a shame. Other than that, I mean, nothing's really been touched up. It's for 10 years old. It's held up very, very well. Let's take a look at the inside. So you'll see it's actually very clean. The most wear is on the driver's seat, as is normally the case. My foot has worn a hole in the Town and Country mat. That's a very easy thing to replace. My fat ass and 216,000 miles of driving has put a little wear on the driver's seat. You can replace just the bottom part there, and I think it's like $200. So I'm probably going to go ahead and do that. Keep it looking nice, because everything else in this is gorgeous. So big, easy to read clusters that I like the chrome trim. I guess you call that a chrome, that shiny finish. It looks classy. When Chrysler merged with Fiat, and while that didn't ultimately prove successful, versus the 2008 version of this, the interior is drastically upgraded. I mean, it's worth getting a later model just for the Pentastar, but the interior, oh my goodness, what a difference. And I think that was in large part to Fiat's influence. That's speculation, but it seems logical. There's a lot of choices on whatever you need to see. You can got automatic headlights that dims the dash cluster, and we're not going to be able to see it because I'm shooting in the daytime, but this centerpiece here, there's some ambient lighting, and you can control the brightness of that there. That looks very nice at night, by the way. So your shifter's up there. You got your information center stuff. Got an analog clock, which I know a lot of companies have done to death, but I do think that classes things up a little bit. I like it. And your temperature controls, and the all-important cup holders. Got some storage and power down there, and then you got 4 more cup holders here, and there's 2 places, one in each door pocket there for bottles and stuff. So just in the front section of the car, you have 8 cup holders, which is awesome. Got some controls over here, power sliding doors, power lift gate, sunglasses. A lot of people like this. You can keep an eye on the kids if you have kids, see what's going on back there. Some reading lamps. Never mind my old school garage door opener. And you got 2 storage spaces up here. I mean, just a very well thought out car in terms of storage and how things are laid out. That engine, by the way, I mean, plenty of power for a minivan. I mean, this thing might have, I'm sure it has a higher horsepower rating than my S10, and probably torque too, but I mean, the S10 would blow this thing out of the water if I was going to race it. But I mean, for getting on the freeway and doing regular minivan stuff, it's more than adequate. I really like the trim in this. I'm grateful they picked the one that had black seats and a lot of black trim and stuff, because otherwise I'm sure this thing would not look quite as nice. But also, there were never any little snot-nosed kids in here throwing Cheerios and writing with their crayons on the paneling and stuff like that. So this is like a senior-owned minivan, which you just don't really see a lot of minivans in quite as nice a shape. I've never programmed those, but I guess those are some garage controls. It does have the DVD player, and we'll talk about that here. I don't want to get a copyright strike or anything. All right, so got a little too early for Apple CarPlay and stuff, but it does, you can connect your iPhone and stuff with the Bluetooth. It's fine. And then this flips up. You can load DVDs. A DVD player. Which, when I went to the dealership with my parents, there was a gray Dodge Caravan that I was very much in favor of. It had cloth seats, but it was nice looking. It was priced, I think, in the mid to high 20s. I don't remember precisely. I think it was like high 20s, maybe 26, 28, something like that. Had everything my parents would need. I thought that was, and the same powertrain and stuff we have here, and maybe not all the nice little chrome finishes and stuff, but the same basic layout. And I was in favor of that car because it was just way cheaper. And as soon as my dad saw the DVD player and the screens in the back and stuff, this is what he had to have. And I will go ahead and share this. It never, ever, ever got used. Like not once, to my knowledge. He never sat in the back usually. My mom didn't give Got to watch my language. My mom didn't give a darn. And, I wasn't, if I was with them, I was driving because I didn't trust their senior driving. So, it was like a $2,500 option or something, and it never got used. And this was a much more expensive car that I believe he bought mainly for that. I know my mom thought this one was prettier, so, I'm glad she got to pick something she really liked and wanted before she passed, so. Got your very standard Chrysler key fob. One thing the 08 my aunt had that this one doesn't, and it's blanked out on this one, is remote start, which I will admit in Ohio would be nice. But just tap it twice. And these have never really given us any trouble over the years. This seems like a feature that would be prone to breaking. We've never had any trouble. We had some weather stripping come loose at one point, but yeah, it was just never an issue. And if that looks a little close, it is. It slides back. I have the driver's seat all the way back. Not that I'm crazy tall, I just like room. But I can sit behind myself very comfortably. We got the term when conversion vans were all the rage were captain's chairs because they had the armrests and whatnot. We got that little aisle to the back seat. Which I think somebody's only sat in the third row literally once. For some reason, my friend Jesse wanted to sit back there when we drove to a casino. So, kind of crazy. So, closing the door. Of course, you can use the key fob again, and there are the controls up on the thing. There's also this button here. Nobody ever seems to notice, and I'm not flipping you guys off. It's how I press that button. Just press that little button on the inside. Everybody seems to miss that, though. And kind of the same thing for the rear. Does have a backup camera, as you can see. That got foggy on me one time, but I used that same Meguiar's stuff, and that's kept that pretty clear, so no complaints there. And this is with all the seats in the upright position and stuff. There's still plenty of room for groceries. Nothing's gonna roll around. And then this is something that was like a good idea, but it just hasn't been practical. It's a flashlight. I forget where the button is. Oh, I guess it's on the side. Oh, maybe sort of lights up. It was never very bright, and it doesn't really. I think maybe it's kind of dimmed over the years, and this thing kind of stuff bangs into it. It kind of falls out. It's not the most practical thing, but they were trying to be innovative. I think the Honda Odyssey of this era had like a vacuum in the back to suck up Cheerios and other kid stuff. And let's take. And I hit the wrong button, but no big deal. Hey, growing up having a Volkswagen bus and a conversion van that only had a door on one side, having doors on each side is pretty cool. I'm sure a lot of people watching are too young to remember that, but one door on the passenger side was the norm. So this is a little faded, but you'll see where it says stow and go. Chrysler was very proud of that, and I do feel like they deserve to be very proud of that. All of the seats in here fold completely flat into the floor. There's some panels that lift up, and it folds completely flat. So you almost have a space that's as big as the bed of the truck on my S10, really. Just about, which is fantastic. I mean, it was just a well thought out thing. It was an option on a Dodge Caravan believe it was standard on the mid and upper level Town and Countries. And a lot of people have forgotten about this, but Volkswagen had a minivan called the Rutan, and it was really just a rebadged Chrysler. It was made in Windsor, Ontario, right across the river from Detroit, right across the bridge, I should say, from Detroit. And it was made right there, right alongside the Town and Country, and the Grand Caravan was a Volkswagen Rutan. It had a little different stance. I did test drive one of those one time. I think it's when we were minivan shopping. And really the powertrain and stuff was very similar. Little different suspension, but it did not have the stow and go. You know, I think Chrysler told Volkswagen, hey, that's ours. That's our proprietary thing. They had like an easy rollout system on the Volkswagens to remove the seats, but the stow and go they were very proud of, and they should have been, because nobody else had that. Everybody else, you had to, seats would pop out and stuff, and you could get them out fairly, not, I won't say easily, but, with minimal work. But this is very easy in comparison, and I'll show you guys that now. I also want to thank this closed PNC Bank for being here so I could film in its parking lot. I don't recommend banking with PNC. I've heard horror stories. Just throwing that out there. It looks like I maybe got a little scratch or something there. Oh well. All right. It is so simple a caveman could do it, I guess. Let me give me 1 second here. Just put the phone down for a second, because there's a little pin you push in and that thing slides right down, but kind of hard to do that with just one hand. So easy a caveman could do it. That one's labeled number 1. This one's over here is labeled number 2, number 3, number 4. And you pull them in that order and they flop down, and then you have a nice flat loading area, and you go in the reverse order when you want to put them back up. So I'm going to try to do this with one hand. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And just like that. Same thing on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And those captain's chairs go down too. Show you that in a minute, although that might be a little trickier with just one hand. More storage back here for the backseat people. Looks like the detail guy forgot his vacuum attachment. I'll have to call him. I don't put these up and down very often because I don't really ever have any passengers. I was really glad we kept the car, because when my dad started using a scooter and walkers and stuff, this was just so much easier for loading and unloading of old people accessories. And the height, rather than getting down into my Lexus, it was just so much easier for him to get in and out of here. And the only reason I didn't sell it after my mom died was shortly after I moved, was I couldn't find the title. It was in a box full of stuff and MIA and stuff, and then the van started coming in handy, so we just ended up keeping it. All right, so you pull up your floor mat. Just toss that back there. So you do want to have the front seat all the way forward. You can move it back after. And there's these little panels down here. And if this is coming across a little crazy, I apologize. Just pull the switch. And this is where I kind of need 2 hands, but sorry guys, I didn't bring a tripod, and that is just, you do need 2 hands. You don't need 2 people, but you do need 2 hands. But it just kind of folds in like that. And you put your mat back, and it covers up the little holes there. This one came off just from a little wear and tear. But as you can see, this thing is super clean for 10 years old, but it was old person owned. So But yeah, so, but you guys get the gist. I won't waste your time putting the other one down, but you get a lot of, maybe not quite as wide, but you have almost as much room as the bed of my S10, maybe a little more even. So if you're that guy that likes having a bed, but you also got to move people, and I'm sure you probably don't want a minivan. This is full of my junk, but there's a bunch of storage there. Yeah, maybe a minivan isn't on your radar. A lot of people balk at them, especially people that grew up in like the 80s and 90s, because that's what everyone's mom had or whatever. And it's really grown on me. I'm a 44-year-old single guy with no kids, and I drive the S10 a lot, but I put more miles on this. This is definitely what I drive in the winter. I mean, if I'm looking for things to complain about, it's not great in the snow. It is front wheel drive. Yeah, it's held up remarkably well. I was very antsy about getting a Chrysler product, but the Pentastar V6, that 6-speed transmission, powertrain's been great. Like trying to think of any major repairs, and there hasn't been much. We had a starter go out. I had to have it towed to the dealership. It took a minute to figure out how to put it in neutral to get it on a tow truck. There's a little thing you remove up by the gear shift, but it wasn't apparent. It wasn't like an older car where you just turn the key and you can put it in neutral. At some point the rear axle bent, and I don't know when that happened. I don't think it was me. Maybe my mom backed into a curb or something. I'm not really sure how that happened. I was able to, well, not me, but the mechanic I use, it was causing a lot of tire wear and stuff. It needed to be replaced if I was going to keep the car. And he found one, and it was nice and true and everything. Probably came from a junkyard or something, but it was about $600 to replace that, if I remember right. And it's not a garage queen. It did get garaged in New Mexico, otherwise the sun would have probably beat the hell out of it more. But here in Ohio, it generally lives outside. With the Cadillac and the S10, I'm out of garage space, so it's almost always outside, unless I'm just lazy and something's out that I don't want to move the cars around. Spent a couple years in California. It was never garaged there, so the paint's held up remarkably well. Yes, it's got a fresh coat of wax and stuff, but really it still looks great. And I had to have a couple things touched up because of idiots, but there haven't been any major repairs. All the accessories work except the wiper. There's a little wiper, like the windshield wiper thing. The one for the front works fine, but the one for the rear, I guess there's a tube that runs up that pillar. And something must have come loose, because if you're sitting in a passenger seat, it'll shoot you with wiper fluid. It's kind of comical, actually. I'm sure it's not a big deal to fix it. It's just not something I've bothered with yet. I tend to wash my windows when I get fuel, and except if it's snowing outside or something, I don't really miss it. And you can still use the wiper without that fluid. So, maybe it's something I'll get taken care of before the winter, but got a luggage rack up there, of course. But yeah, that is the 2014 Town & Country. Not a lot of minivan competitions. Of course, there was its Chrysler sibling, the Grand Caravan. These are nicer, especially if you want to stow and go. The Toyota Sienna was around. I know those are very reliable. The Honda Odyssey, I really don't know much about. I haven't heard anyone complaining about them, though. And there was a Kia minivan that, I'm sorry, I can't remember its name off the top of my head, but like a lot of Kia products, it wasn't like the strongest for longevity. But this has been a pleasant surprise in terms of reliability. I hope I just didn't jinx it by talking about it. But it's the highest mileage vehicle I own at this point. It passed the S10, and it hasn't needed any major stuff, and it's just held up very well. These are good cars, and you know, driving a minivan doesn't bother me. I like sitting up high. The gas is about 17.25, something like that. 17 city, obviously, 25 highway. So I mean, it's better than some of the biggest trucks or SUVs. It's got a lot more room than a small SUV. It's got a bigger engine and more power than a small SUV. So yeah, just on the whole, this has been a terrific car. Thanks for watching my Town and Country review. This has been Totally Rad Cars. My name is Mark, and I hope you will like and subscribe and check out some of my other videos. Thanks.